Councilor Stanley.
Thank you, Mr. President. Like my colleagues, I have to just publicly state that the conditions of the streets were absolutely horrendous. And before I forget, we do know that the city workers that we do have work extremely hard in doing their job. And personally, I don't see it as an employee, a laborer issue per se, but the conditions were horrendous. Saturday morning, when I drove out of Waltham into Lexington on a main road on Lexington Street into Waltham Street, I felt like I was going to another world. All of a sudden, all the streets were paved deep into Lexington. I did the same thing later in the day. I had to go through Belmont and Watertown and then Newton. Same thing occurred. By and large, the streets were far better. And these are heavily congested areas as well. And the difference was stark as soon as you crossed the border from Waltham into another community. So something is terribly wrong in the city of Waltham. And as my colleagues mentioned, it's resulted in a serious public safety issue. And for me, I believe this is more of a planning and management issue, and specifically the lack of planning from the corner office. Now, currently we have 3 different capital improvement programs on the City Council Long-Term Debt Committee docket, with no funding request at all attached to them. I have capital improvement plans going back to 2002 with hundreds of thousands of dollars identified by the mayor in snow removal equipment that has not been budgeted for, and the money has not been asked for by the City Council. Out of all of these items, there was only, I believe, a couple of dump trucks, 1-ton dump trucks that were purchased in the last couple of years. In fact, we have currently 5 or 6 sander trucks with plows attached that could be attached to them, broken down and sitting idly by in the city yard as we speak. And we only have about 5 or 6 currently working in terms of the city-owned sanders. The city of Newton has 33 that they own. Now, I know Newton is larger. They have 100,000 people. We have 60,000 people. I don't have the square mileage in terms of roads. Right now, I'm sure it's a lot larger, but it's not 5 or 6 times larger. We have plenty of tax revenue to deal with this issue. There is absolutely no excuse. This is an essential public service that the city of Waltham must provide. All of the, I'm acutely aware now with my parents, with their age, and how important it is to have the roads cleared, to go to doctor appointments, to go to the hospital in cases of emergencies and whatnot. And of course, my children, my youngest, who's in the Waltham public school system, and about how important it is to be have a safe entrance for them going into our public school system and our public schools. That's not the case today. Hopefully, it will be tomorrow when they attend school. About 20 years ago, DPW had, the Department of Public Works had about 65 employees. Today, the DPW has been consolidated with 2 other public city agencies, Park and Recreation Department and the Cemetery Division. Together, those 3 divisions only have about 43 employees. And I don't know the exact figure, but it's between 6 and 10 or 12 that actually work in the old DPW, being out there working the streets. You cannot dismantle an infrastructure like that and expect everything to work fine when we have a huge storm like this. It's just not possible. I mean, this is what happens when you have poor planning, when you decide to not refill position after position after position in the Public Works Department, when you decide to delay buying capital improvement equipment. All of these capital improvement plans, they're just plans. There's no money request attached to them. And I've highlighted all of the different snow removal equipment, and these are the ones that just made it in. As you all know, the department heads all have their wish list and what they think is necessary in terms of capital improvements, and they submit it to the mayor's office. And then only so many make it out into a capital improvement program. And then hardly any of them make it out of the capital improvement program into a capital improvement budget. And that is a huge reason why we had this huge problem in Waltham with the snowstorm the last couple of days and a public safety issue. And it has to change. Thank you, Mr. President. I don't know if it's appropriate tonight to do this or in a couple of weeks, but I probably tonight. The fact that when you drove into other communities just from leaving Waltham and it was completely different, it's common sense for our CPW director to do that. And I have a request that the CPW director investigate the snow removal operations of bordering towns and report findings back to the city council by March 31, 2013. I've given plenty of time, and what I'm looking for is, what do they do differently than Waltham? I know there are characteristics that are unique to each community, but all of those communities could not have done such a superior job in Waltham, such a disaster. So I'd like to have a vote on that request, and I'll put it in writing. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. On the request, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.